everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Anna Raful. I am your host of Camp Broadway's At This Stage. With our partners at Streamable Learning, I'm live in my apartment in New York City. So excited to connect you with Broadway professionals on and off the stage and connecting them to you, our families, our students, our kiddos, our teachers who are all across the country and beyond. We'll be together for the next 35 minutes or so, and I will do my best to answer all of your questions or have our guests answer all of your questions. So feel free to start sending me those in our Q&A function. I'm so excited about our guest today. Our guest is the composer, Zina Goldrich. Hi, Zina.
Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm good. All right, before I let Zina talk too much, I'm going to give you her bio. So Zina is the 2009 Fred Ebb Award winner for excellence in songwriting, along with her collaborator, Marcy Heisler. Zina is the composer of such musicals as Ever After, Junie B. Jones, Dear Edwina, and works with Dame, I think she's a Dame, Julie Andrews on The Great American Mousical, which was first presented out in Goodspeed. Zina also has worked on various television shows, on animated series, and also has been in many a pit orchestra on the Broadway. So welcome, Zina. Thanks for joining me.
I am so thrilled to be here today. It's like, this was like the focus of my day. I like it.
Where are you right now? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, I'm in my apartment. I'm by my piano, which always makes me very happy. Yeah, it's so strange. I mean, I get out for walks and stuff, but you know, we've been cooped up, my family and me, and so it's been interesting.
What more can you do? Your family and your piano.
Yeah, it's true. But you know, I've been doing a lot of writing. The big secret is for people who work, you know, as writers or creators. Doesn't matter where. This is not that different from my regular day because I stay home and I work. The difference is I can get out and go to the supermarket without a mask on or whatever. But for the most part, I'm still doing my writing and playing and you know, trying to find cool things like this to do to keep me busy and creative, you know.
Awesome. And before we hear what you're working on, let's go back to the beginning. So what was your first introduction to music, to theater, your background?
You know, I started music lessons when I was about 3, and I started piano when I was 5. My dad's a musician in addition to being a doctor, and so we had a lot of music around the house, and it was very clear that I just loved it right from the start. So, you know, and my piano teacher was really someone who encouraged me to make up stuff. For lack of a better, you know, I didn't know it was like composing at the time. I didn't even know I would ever be a composer by trade, to be honest. I loved theater. My folks would take me in to see shows whenever we could. And I moved out to LA, and so I didn't see as much Broadway, but I saw, you know, touring companies. So you don't have to be in New York to really love theater. And I got involved in high school and college, and, you know, ultimately I started writing songs, you know, basically in high school for real, you know, and I just wrote music pieces before that, but to, you know, to work with a lyricist and actually make a song kind of thing, that started in high school. And I love theater so much. I was a performer, you know, I did a lot of stuff at school, but when I moved to New York, it dawned upon me that, you know, there are a lot of people who were probably a lot better at me at performing. But I still loved it so much, but I realized that people really did like singing my songs. And so I kind of started to tilt towards that. And, you know, ironically, I still get to, you know, sing and perform and everything. So that's really fun for me. You know, I don't have to really choose. I get to do both.
Do you have a memory from growing up, from childhood, of seeing a show, something that forever sticks in your mind as just something that was so special for you?
I think they were all pretty special, to be honest. I do remember seeing My Fair Lady as a kid, and I remember seeing Gypsy as a kid, and it was Angela Lansbury, actually.
Ooh.
And I was pretty little, and my folks were pretty progressive, and I was like, whoa, like this, it was kind of mind blowing at the time. But, I would come home and I would play any of the songs that I could remember. And, back then I could remember a lot of them. It was really kind of cool. So, and, chorus line was really fun too.
Not too young.
Yeah, I mean, there were just so many great shows. How can you choose any of them? I just, every time I went, I just felt like this oxygen had been put into my body, and I just loved it. And I still feel that way about theater. Every time I go, I get so inspired and want to do something, whether it's just go home and sing or play or write or whatever.
Absolutely. Okay, so what?
I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do. You know me well. So post college, so you come to New York. When did you first think, okay, I can do this composing thing and I can do this?
I was actually pretty lucky. It was before I came to New York. I got my first, I wrote a TV theme song with a friend of mine from high school. And he had an in with the producers, and we wrote this song, and it actually ended up being chosen. It was for Mickey Rooney's show, One of the Boys. And the cast was insane. I just have to tell you, just as a side thing, nobody will remember the show, but you could probably Google the theme. It's really cute. But Mickey Rooney was in it, and it had Betty Garrett, and it had Dana Carvey, played Mickey Rooney's grandson, and Nathan Lane was Dana Carvey's roommate. Okay. And I heard Meg Ryan was on it too.
That's crazy.
It only had 13 episodes, and it was very sweet, but it didn't last. But when that aired, I thought, oh, well, maybe I can do this. So I came to New York and I joined the BMI workshop. And
can you explain what that is for some?
I can. That is a workshop run by BMI, which is Broadcast Music Incorporated. They do all the they keep track of who plays what, like ASCAP and BMI. They're both kind of contemporaries of each other. And they have a workshop that's really dedicated to the craft of writing musical theater. And so you go there and they give you all sorts of assignments to write.
How long is it?
It was like 2 years, and then there's the advanced year that just is like ongoing. And it was really cool. They give you an assignment like write a hello song that really means goodbye, or vice versa, that kind of thing. And there's the famous assignment for Blanche Dubois in The Streetcar Named Desire. We were given lots of really challenging assignments, and then we'd come in and play our songs, and people would make comments, and you learn what works and what doesn't. So I studied there for a few years and started working in, Broadway pits and playing stuff. And I was like, oh, I guess this is where my life is going, which I had no complaints about that. It was really kind of a fun thing.
And so at BMI, you were paired with someone, or you chose different writing partners, or did you think about writing lyrics yourself?
Well, it was interesting. The first year they kind of pick, you do like a round robin and you write with everybody in the class. And then, by the second year, you start to settle down with the people who you really liked working with. And I didn't really find, my person while I was there. And so Maury Eston, who was my teacher at the time, suggested I start writing lyrics on my own. So I did, and I wrote a musical based on Moonstruck, which I think is an amazing idea, and I hope they do it someday, even if it's not me. And that got me a job at Disney in California. And so again, I was working by myself, but then I came back to the BMI workshop to visit, and that's where I met Marcy Heisler, who has been my longtime writing partner, and we've written all those shows that you mentioned at the beginning together. And so, it's sort of like when you meet your special person. We wrote a song together and like, oh, well, that was easy. That was really fun. That was not, we just see things the same way. And so, that's how we met. I mean, we met in the workshop, and then we were friends first, and we started writing together after that. And, it's been a long time now. I want to say how so
that's so cool. So, okay, so take me to the beginnings of when you want to write a show? I know that's kind of a big question, but how does the material come to you? Do you go searching for it?
You know, it depends. Isn't that a great answer? It depends.
No, yeah.
Sometimes we get assigned things. Like when we were asked to write Junie B. Jones, I had never read the books. But I went to the Barnes & Noble like you used to do in the old days. And, and I read it, and I just thought it was so incredibly charming. And Marcy thought so too. And so, you know, we were offered the job and we took it because we thought, well, this will be fun. That's a fun character. And you always look for, you know, characters that sing or situations that sing, that
What do
have
you,
emotions.
can you elaborate that on, like, what do you mean a situation that sings?
You know, we often talk about the fact, like, when you can't speak anymore, that's when you sing. And when you can't sing anymore, that's when you dance, right?
Right.
So if saying I love you is not enough, you want to express it even more, you probably want to sing about it.
Okay.
And then, you know, dance is further as well with that. But also I think that there are, you know, songs allow you to go internally. You know, we are hearing the character's inner thoughts. So it's not necessarily that I'm just kind of saying, you know, I like that person or whatever. It's more like you can hear all the inner workings, because that's what a song really does. That's what musical theater does that film doesn't do, for example. You can see close up and you can read a lot of what their expression is, but when it really comes to knowing exactly what they're thinking, a song can do that. You're allowed to do that, and they're allowed to sing their innermost thoughts, and we're privy to that, which is kind of a cool thing, I think.
Very cool. So, okay, so you get presented an idea, like such as Junie B. Jones. How do you guys divide the work? What comes first? I'm sure it's like the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, to tell you the truth, I like to work lyrics first. Marcy's really good at that. She's always, she's pretty good at kind of seeing a moment and saying, yeah, I think we want to, you know, musicalize that. And I like, as a composer, I like to know what I'm writing about. I think I write the best melodies and the best mood or, you know, whatever the music is supposed to service. I think I do that best when I really know what I'm talking about very specifically, because I also use the words to give me hints. You know, if you're singing words like high and low, quite often I will literally make the notes go up higher or lower, that kind of thing. There are a lot of things that you can do to kind of color and illustrate. And sometimes you want to go exactly opposite. If somebody says they're happy and you know they're not, right? The music, you know, the lyric can be saying I'm so happy, but the music can tell you completely otherwise. So the music can either completely support what the lyric is saying or let you know that there's something else going on underneath, you know?
You want to give us an example over there?
Oh, so, okay, well, let's see. You know, if you're like, boy, I'm happy, I'm so happy, right? And if you're like, boy, I'm happy, I'm so happy, I'm really happy.
Something's not right.
You know, and it's really the same lyrics, but you get a completely different feeling, depending on how you said it. So,
yeah. And then
I should save those, huh? That's probably great.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that one. Okay, so were there any? So you with Junie B, what was that process? So you guys worked together, and then it went on stage, or what are those steps?
So what happens is we write a draft. For Junie B, Marcy just like ran through and wrote the whole book at once. It was really great. And so the songs, I mean, the lyrics were there, was like all kind of ready. And so, you know, each day I'd come over and start to do stuff. And some things like the opening number really had to be worked through very carefully, because it goes back and forth between dialogue and singing. It's not like a straightforward song, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And so that was kind of fun, but that takes a little doing and maneuvering, and for us to be in the room together. And other situations, it can be where, you know, we can be like we are right now in separate places, but I can, you know, she gave me a great little jazz lyric the other day, so I said it and I sent it to her. So we don't have to be in the same room, but it's always nice when we are.
Sure.
So we write the songs, we get a draft, and then, the music is written out, and then usually there's a reading after that, because, all this stuff is in your head and you're making it up, and then you want to hear what it is, because sometimes something that sounds good in your head may not make sense to everybody else. Like, it makes sense to you because you know what you're thinking about, but maybe not, to the audience. So we have like a development process. So we get actors and we teach them the music, and they have what they call a 29-hour reading. And it's literally 29 hours of rehearsal. And you get to teach the music. Everybody's still on script. And
Right.
you usually sit behind music stands, and the actors will act it all out. There's no blocking, no movement, no costumes, no props, no nothing. It is just, let's hear it, like almost like a radio play,
Mm-hmm.
And
Here we go.
and so I'm sort of looking. Hi guys, I'm looking at all your stats and everything. I hope we get to some of these questions too.
Yeah.
In any case, that's what happens, and we make some changes and everything, and then we go into rehearsal, and then you add dance and movement, and then you have to adjust the score again, and then you put it on in front of an audience, and hopefully it works.
I like it. I like that. That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
before I get to the questions, and I promise I will,
Okay.
I just wanted you to talk about some of the other things that you do with your time besides writing for the stage.
Oh yeah. Well, it's great to have the time to write, that we're all kind of cooped up and everything. But these days, I mean, in normal life, I do a lot of coaching for auditions. I, work with singers, high school students who have college auditions. I work with actors who are auditioning for Broadway, and I they come in and we work on their audition stuff, and they say, oh, this is a great song for you, or hey, have you thought about this kind of thing, that kind of stuff. And so lately what we've been doing is we've made the shift to digital. We're kind of, Zoom has been my friend on this, because some of the students I already have, I'm able to continue with, and some of the students that I don't have yet, I'm able to, but I have students like in California, who are normally here. I mean, it's fantastic. I'm keeping busy that way. I'm trying.
And then you also play, is there what's the difference when you write for, is there a difference between when you write for a screen or when you write for stage? Is there a difference for how you do stuff? I know you've written for like the middle and
oh yeah, I mean, it depends.
Sprites.
What? Which one?
Johnny and the Sprites, like when you write
yeah,
for the
Johnny and the Sprites or Wonder Pets, or some of that stuff. That stuff is very specific because you're writing exactly the picture. So I have to, actually with those, I get the script first, so I have to imagine what the picture is like. And then once I record everything, the dialogue and all that. So it's a far different process than just kind of setting a lyric. I have to read all the dialogue, and then I have to underscore it. And then what they do is they have the real actors come in and they take my dialogue out and they put the actors in. And then add to that. It's a really cool process. It's just completely different than writing for theater. Theater, you can just write it, and then you give it to fabulously talented people like all of your students, and then they go with it, and they try to do stuff. It's super fun.
All right, I got to get to some of these questions. Yes, I prefer friends that are watching in the Q&A, but I check the chat too, so don't worry. Let's see, what do we got here? Oh, I knew this was coming, but Max has a question. Hello, I'm an aspiring singer-songwriter, and I was wondering if you have any tips for me on writing my own songs.
Well, I think, first of all, just write them. I know that sounds kind of funny, but the more you write, the better you get at it. And the nice thing about writing songs for yourself is that your own voice, your own instrument. And, I would just say write about things you care about, that means something to you. I think, when I say this all the time, for auditions and for everything, it's all about connecting to the material. So first, you as a performer have to connect to it. It's something that has to matter to you, because if it matters to you, it's going to matter to us as the audience. So I would just say, first of all, yay for writing and doing all that stuff. And second of all, pick stuff that's meaningful to you, that stuff you're working through in your mind. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just you're sitting home and you're going crazy sitting home. It's okay to write a song about that too,
So you mentioned it briefly, but you've been, as we like to say, on the other side of the table, right? So you've been in many audition rooms. We've had a lot of guests that have been actors and auditioning, but you have the fortune of being on the other side of the table and seeing what it looks like. What is that when you're sitting there? What are you looking for? What are some ways that we can, catch your attention, I guess?
Well, I would, every audition is different because you're looking for different things depending on the show. But I can say this with absolute certainty that your job as a performer is to be the best you. Show us who you are and that you are just somebody that we can't live without. So if you come in, you don't have to be anything you're not. You just have to be you. And sometimes that lines up with what the show is or what the character is, and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't mean we don't go, oh, hey, that person was really good. I know they're not right for this show, but I know somebody else doing something where they're looking for, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
I think the idea is you should audition as much as you can. It's like a muscle. You really want to keep that, just keep up with that. I know it's hard to right now, so I think it's more a question of picking songs that really show who you are. Show your strengths. If you're funny, show you're funny. If you have an amazing voice, show your amazing voice. If you find yourself to be a better actor than singer, then choose songs that really show your acting chops. That's really it. And just the biggest thing I can say about the people behind the table is that it always looks, people think that it's very scary looking at this table of people. And they always look very serious and they're writing stuff. But the fact is that everybody behind the table wants you to do your best work. Because if we find the right person, then our job is done, right? The idea is we want you to be really good and we want you to feel comfortable. And because then there's more for us to choose from. If you come in and you don't have an audition, an audition you're happy with, that doesn't make us happy. It's not about that. It's about, we want you to do well. And no, even though we might not say this, like when you come in, I want you to do really well. Just know that the people
you're feeling
want you to do well. They want you to be successful. They want everybody to have a good day and feel like they've shown their best work. After that, it's out of everybody's hands because quite often it is or it isn't. And it has nothing to do with how much talent you have, because there are so many talented people who come in. You'd be amazed. You're like, oh, I want to use that person. What can I use them for? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? It's not always a matchup for that one show, but believe you me, things come around and people come in again, and then that next show you're doing, it's, so it's just a good thing for that person. Yeah.
Okay, so Jennifer asked, which I mentioned this earlier for a second, but so you've played in the pit of a bunch of different shows on Broadway, in the pit orchestra. When you're in the pit, are you conducting or playing an instrument?
I've done both. It's been a while since I've conducted. The last show I conducted was Titanic. And I was pregnant with my daughter during that, which was hilarious because every time we would go I was about 8 or 9 months pregnant. I was pretty pregnant. And every time we would start to go towards the iceberg, she'd start moving around like, I don't like this music going on. I am supposed to be subbing on 6, which would be conducting and playing in the band, which is such a cool show. It's so much fun. But who knows what's going to happen. So in the meanwhile, I'm just practicing, but it's been super fun. I really, really love to play in the pit. I love playing in an orchestra. It's so collaborative, and there's nothing that sounds better than a live orchestra. I mean, come on, right? Yeah. Or band, whatever it happens to be, but it's super
fun. All right, this is a tough one, and I apologize, but I got to ask it because I'm curious too. Melody wants to know, has there ever been a favorite song you've made? And is that like picking between your children? But
it really is like picking between your children. I mean, it's not like I fall out of love with the songs, but some weeks I'm like, I'm really into this song. And then other weeks I'm really into that song or whatever, or I haven't heard a song in a while. I'm like, oh, remember that one? So I can't say I have a favorite one. I'm proud of all of them, I'm proud of all of them. And there's nothing that gives me more pleasure when I see somebody else sing one of my songs. I'm like, it's one thing to write them. It's another thing when somebody else actually wants to take the time to learn it, to sing it, and make it their own. I mean, that's kind of what you live for when you're a composer. You know what I'm saying?
I have to mention, I mean, I told you I was going to do it, but the TikTok version, or no, I'm sorry, not the TikTok, but the hand washing version of Taylor, the Latte Boy.
Really?
Pretty fantastic.
I was like, I saw that, and I saw Kristen do the TikTok of singing while she washed her hands, and I told my kids who are, grown up, and I said, I made it onto TikTok. I was so excited. And then of course, seeing the hand washing thing, I mean, in my life, I just never thought that would happen.
That song.
And especially with that song, when we wrote that song, when we wrote Taylor, I don't think we ever thought that it was going to do what it did. It just was like this cute little song, and we had fun writing it. We had a good time, and then all of a sudden, it just blew up. Kristen was on the Rosie O'Donnell show, and after that, everybody wanted that song. And the funny thing, she was on the Rosie's show on Broadway.com.
Yeah,
I could not believe it. I was like, what is it with that song? It keeps going.
It hits people right here. We all know it, Taylor.
We all do know it, Taylor. It's true.
Yeah, it's true.
Starbucks.
Yeah, in Starbucks. Rochelle wanted to know, and this is interesting because of what the relationship, especially with Taylor and Kristen Chenoweth, but how much do you get to know an actor before do you ever write songs for specific actors? Or do you change stuff with, I know that other people have sung Taylor. Alan Cumming did a version. I know there are other people, my mind isn't working, but do they come to you and say, hey, can you help me do this? Or they just sort of take it and run with it? And are you okay with that?
It's interesting because, I mean, you don't often know who you're writing for when you write it. It does happen sometimes that you do. Sure. If you're writing a show and somebody is attached to it, then of course you're going to write for their strengths and such. But so you don't often know, although sometimes we'll get a song, Leah Salonga sings There's Nothing I Wouldn't Do, which is actually a duet. Yep. And she asked, can we make this into a solo? And we talked to her about it, and Marcy, I guess, made some adjustments with her, and it was really great because, to be really honest, I'm thrilled that she sang it. Yeah, it's a duet, but how great that she wanted to sing it as a solo. So, so that was pretty nice. So sometimes somebody will say, oh, this word is peculiar for me. Is there something you can do about it? And sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't. But we're always very grateful when people ask. That's really, as opposed to just kind of changing the whole things themselves. It's always really, we're actually fairly accessible. And so it's nice if somebody wants to do something unique, to see if there's, any issue or maybe if we have any ideas for it, because sometimes we do.
Yeah. Caitlin from Oregon wants to know, how do you deal with writer's song block?
Ooh, yeah. It's tough. It surprises you every so often. I think what happens with me is that I try to just let it go a little bit and realize that it is part of what we do. You can't, it's sort of like filling up the well. You kind of, sometimes you're doing so much stuff and you just don't feel like you have anything down there, and you just have to give it a little time to replenish, and it's okay. I mean, let's face it, we all have a lot of replenishing time right now.
Sure.
Which is kind of interesting because, I'm getting more sleep than I used to get, but sometimes when I'm really working on something and I can't get it, I walk around thinking about it a lot. It's just in my mind. And sometimes I'll wake up 3 a.m. and that loop, how do I get out of that chord? How do I get to that place? I haven't been able to solve it. And then sometimes it'll just come out of nowhere when you're not thinking about it. Even though I'm thinking about it for days, then I stop thinking about it and then there it is.
Yeah.
It's a part of what we do, but it's if you don't let it scare you, it's not that scary because it always comes back. You're an artist. There's always stuff coming out. There's always music coming out. There's more music to be written, more songs to be sung,
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, do you want to give us a little something?
Sure.
Gotta ask. I got,
This is for you, Anna, because Anna really likes this song. And Anna didn't mention this, but Anna and I have known each other for forever, a really long time. So this, for me, was such a pleasure to be able to get to talk to you, but have, everybody sort of join in on our kind of girl hangout here. So, so I'm going to do Ever After from the show Ever After. And this is the song that the father sings to Danielle, our Cinderella, at the very beginning of the show. And it comes back later in certain ways, but here it goes, I guess. Mind if I take a little?
No, do it.
Before.
I love it.
Okay. All right. I just thought, I know some people like to see hands, so I'm going to
yes, please raise my hand
and not cut off my head at the same time. Time may take me far away from you. Still, my dear, you must remember. Every time I have to say goodbye, I never really go. When two hearts are joined like yours and mine, there is no such thing as gone. Ever after, love goes on. Even if the world divides us, even if I cross the sea, think about how much I love you, and there I'll be. Come and let me see that stunning smile, though the tears can't help but fall. Sometimes what can seem so far away is not so far at all. When two hearts are joined like yours and mine, there is no such thing as gone. Ever after, love goes on. Ever after, love goes on.
Yay, thank you. Oh my gosh, everyone is applauding in the chat. You are amazing.
Oh, I see it. Thank you, guys.
I'm here wiping the tears. Don't mind me. Every time that song gets me crying. Every time. I love that. Thank you so much. All right, I have time for a couple more questions, if you don't mind. What? Oh, I just lost it. Where did it go? Cher has a question here. How do you find new solutions in case during readings you find out you need to change songs you love?
That's a really good question. This happens all the time. You find out you've given like a couple of bars for a character to get here from there, and then you realize, oh, they have to go over here first, or they have to do a little, the choreographer wants to give them a couple more steps. And that comes with experience, knowing how to kind of stretch things. But sometimes it can lead you to like a really cool solution that you never thought you could come up with. It's just sort of, it just happens. It comes from knowing how to compose and how to come up with fresh ideas. And the fact is, being in the room with all those actors and the directors and all the people who work on it, it's a really inspiring place to be. It's a very creative space. And so it feels like a really safe place to try things. So you don't always get it the first time. You're like, well, this will be, sometimes I'll put in something like, okay, here are 2 bars here. I don't know what that's going to be. And then I'll go home that evening after rehearsal and just see if I can finesse it a little bit.
Sit and play, or do you just see what comes out?
Oh yeah, sometimes it's literally like, they're like, okay, we need about, 15 seconds of something happening here because this has to happen and that has to happen. And we know the feeling has to be like that. And so you're just kind of, You know, I mean, you just like
Sure.
make up something as you go. And a lot of the time what I'll do is I'll record. I always record when I'm writing because I'm usually off in another place. I'm not in a place where I'm thinking about chords and structure and everything. I'm just feeling it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I put my phone on, I record it, and I know if I came up with something, I'm like, oh, there it is. And I can go back and listen to it. But, you know, most of the time it's kind of just improvisation, just as you would improvise a scene or lines or, you know, that kind of thing. You know, you get to know how to do it. And it's actually, the challenge is really fun.
That's great. No, that makes a lot of sense. My final question I ask everyone. So Camp Broadway, who is one of the presenters of this fantastic program, our motto is develop your character. So what does character mean to you?
You mean from a writing standpoint?
From a writing standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from an actor, a theater standpoint, you know, what is your character, I guess?
Well,
Developing,
yes. I mean, there are two things. You know, when you talk about character for a person, an individual who is not an actual made-up human being kind of thing, I do think about kind of being the best person I can be and trying to be, you know, honest and trustworthy and a good friend and all that kind of stuff. I think all that, what happens outside of the room affects what happens inside of the room, you know?
Sure.
You bring all of your life experience into the room. And I think that's really important. And so all of those personal experiences that you have, you're able to layer onto those characters that you are trained.
Sure.
And as far as character goes for, you know, writing characters, I think when it really comes down to it is that often we write characters that are based on ourselves, some part of ourselves.
Sure.
And so again, when I said before, it's all about connecting. It's all about connecting. So it's about connecting those parts of you that you understand so deeply and so well, and bringing them to a character that you might not know so well at the beginning, but as you get to know that character better, you know what parts of you line up with that character. And by bringing that in and being, and it just makes it more real and more relatable, which is really all you're looking to do. You want your audience to be able to relate to this person. So the more real this character is, the better off you are, you know? Does that make sense? Was that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that you, absolutely. All of those things. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
I love this. And guys, thank you so much for all the comments. I just love it. I'm seeing them and I'm going to go back and read them afterwards. I honestly thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about, you know, my process, and also for letting me hang out with Anna a bit too.
How can people find you, get in touch with you, find your music? Where can people buy? Because we want to buy.
Okay. I will give you the skinny on all of this. We are on musicnotes.com, Sheet Music Direct. Some of the Ever After stuff is on there. And we are at, I'm at Zena Goldrich for Twitter, at Zena Goldrich for Instagram. You can always DM me if you have a question, that kind of thing, or, you know, coach, all of that kind of stuff.
Virtual coaching.
Yes, I do those. I do all sorts of, you know, we're looking to keep busy these days, people. So, and thank you for supporting my music as well, because when you buy the sheet music, it actually helps support Marcy and me to write more music that you can sing.
Yeah.
So always very grateful for that, for people who really, you know, take the time to actually, you know, go to these places and actually buy it. So thank you for that.
Ooh. And you can find Camp Broadway on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, at Camp Broadway, at the stage. Tomorrow we have a special Saturday edition with the fantastic Jill Abramovich.
I love Jill. She's amazing.
I know.
You guys definitely have to tune in. She is such a wonderful person, a great performer.
Star of Beetlejuice. She's been in, oh my, I can't even count all the Broadway shows. Same time tomorrow, 1:30. We will see you then. Have a great day. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.